Today's lesson is rooted in one of the great paradoxes of Christian living. That to lead, we must go to the back of the line. One of the best examples we have currently of man as servant leader comes from an unlikely place, the NFL. Tony Dungy, the Super Bowl winning coach gone broadcaster, needs no introduction. We all know who he is. For this episode, Man Up and Go CEO Jeff Ford joins Coach Dungy in one of his favorite pastimes to see how being a servant leader is crucial to embracing Jesus' brand of masculinity.
Hey everyone, Jeff Ford here with Man Up and Go, and I'm so excited for you guys to see our guest today. Coach Dungy.
How are you?
Jeff, good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Yeah,
Great
absolutely.
to see you.
So you guys ready to fish?
I understand we're going to do a little catching, not fishing, catching.
I like that.
Oh, there we go. A little catching. Yeah, we're going to do a little...
He's a professional, right?
That's
Yes,
why
sir.
we got him, right?
Yes, sir. We're going to do a little largemouth fishing today. I'll give you a quick little demonstration of what you want to do here. We're just going to sling it out here. Doesn't got to be too far. And what you're hoping is a bass will come up, eat it on the surface.
I think most guys, they're looking at you and they see, Super Bowl winning coach, they see TV analyst, but what's Tony like? What's Tony like? Because that's a kind of an on-air persona, but what's Tony like at the house?
I think I'm just a regular guy. I like to be active. I like to be outdoors. That's why I love Florida. And I kind of love hanging out with my boys too. We've got 8 boys all together, 3 girls, and I enjoy the girls too. But just seeing those young guys and trying to help them grow, that to me is fun.
Yeah. If you think back and kind of, as you went to the University of Minnesota, right, and you played football and went to college, everything, as you were kind of growing up, what were some of those challenges? Did you face any challenges, or did you feel like everything just kind of always worked out for you?
Yeah, I think that's really the big thing I learned from my dad is you're going to have problems. You're going to have issues in life. It's never going to go perfect. But what are you going to do when you face that? In fact, growing up, if anything went wrong, I'd always go to my mom because she would give me the sympathy and say, oh, that's too bad. And anytime I talked to my dad about any problem, hey, the coach didn't put me in the game today, the umpire called strike 3 and it was a ball, anything I said like that, he'd listen and then he'd say, okay, got it, but now what are you going to do to make it better?
Well, Coach, I'm not getting any bites here today.
We have been here 20 minutes. I'm shocked. I thought we would have caught a fish by now, but...
I even had him chum it up for us, and we still are struggling. But that's the thing about fishing, right? You just need time.
Yes.
You need a lot of time out here. But maybe we can go and grab a seat and finish up this talk, huh?
Yeah, let's do that, and then maybe the fish will heat up afterward.
I like that. All right, Coach. Well, we didn't get any to hit today.
Tough day, but we had fun.
It was a good time getting to know you, just being out here on the water. It's a good time. So I wanted to transition a little bit, talk about servant leadership. I mean, you mentioned that a little bit out there as we're talking and heard it in your voice and how your dad was and everything. But when you hear that word servant leadership, Jesus said in Matthew 20:28 that the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. So with that as kind of a context, what does that term mean to you?
I look at that, Jeff, and I think of my parents who were school teachers, and their whole thought was, I've got to help my students get A's. And that's what I think of as a servant, somebody who's there to help other people. I always felt that was my job as a coach, help my players be the best that they could be, and that's my job as a dad, to help my kids be the best they can be.
Yeah, so speaking about that, your job as a coach, because that's how we all know you, right? Your family knows you as Tony and Dad, but we know you as Coach. Can you talk about, how did you take that? Because I know I've read that ministry, coaching was ministry for you. How did you take that posture of servant leadership into the locker room and into your daily interaction?
I really felt that God had put me there to, help our team win, obviously, but help my young men develop. And I felt that was part of my job. So I remember the first day I had a team meeting here in Tampa with the Buccaneers in 1996. Talked to them about winning the championship. But I said, hey, that's not the biggest thing we'll do. More importantly than that, you guys are going to develop as men. You're going to develop families. You're going to be part of this community. How are we going to get that done? And that's my job as well, to help you there. So I probably talked 10 minutes about winning games and 50 minutes about how we're going to win as people in the community. And I really thought that was important.
And you were telling the story earlier to me about just how you were pouring into, some of the young men and talking to them about the importance of family and the importance of, like, this is not. Do you have any, like, examples of how those seeds kind of germinated and then later on you found, oh man, it actually took root?
Yeah, I talk so much about growing and family and community, and some of the players weren't used to that. Some of them wanted to just hear about my drill work and how I'm supposed to be better and how I can be a better player and get a better contract. And we had this one particular player, Reagan Upshaw. He was the first player we drafted here in Tampa. And he didn't re-sign with us after his 4 years were up. He went to another team. And I thought, well, that was one guy that I just didn't connect with. Saw him on the street many years later, just walked past him. He came up, gave me a big hug. He said, Coach, you used to talk to us about all that off the field stuff. I used to get so mad because I didn't think it pertained to me. I couldn't figure out why you were wasting time on that. But now I have kids and I understand. And I just want to thank you for that, because it's had a big impact on my family life. And you think, wow, this is 25 years later. And I didn't think it was getting through, but it did get through.
Because we don't know, right? Downstream,
You don't always know
what that's going to look like. So, Coach, keeping on that family theme, Ephesians 5 tells us that we are to love our wives as Christ loved the church, right? We're to lay down our lives for her and imitating Christ when we do that. So I'm just thinking about our wives and our families. Like you had mentioned a story about kind of family day at practice. What was that like?
Yeah, I was really, really blessed. My first coach in professional football was a guy named Chuck Knoll, 4-time Super Bowl winner. But when I came to the Steelers as a rookie, I expected him to say, hey, you got to work harder and pour more into this than you ever have if you want to achieve these goals. And he was just the opposite. He said, you can't make football your whole life. If you make football your whole life, you're going to be disappointed. We've got to build things. And so we always had what we call Family Saturday. That was the Saturday practice the day before the game. It was low-key and lighthearted, but everybody brought their kids because he wanted the kids to know where Dad spent all his time, why it was important. He wanted us to get to know the other kids. The whole thing was great. So when I became a coach, I instituted that in Tampa, and the players loved it, and we did that for 6 years. Well, then I went to Indianapolis and instituted the same thing. The only problem was my quarterback was a guy named Peyton Manning, and he was used to Saturdays being this last-minute, full preparation, total concentration day, and so he'd come to me every 3 or 4 weeks. I understand what we're trying to do with this family stuff, but maybe we could just keep the kids in the locker room. Do they have to be on the field? It's kind of breaking our concentration. No, Peyton, Family Saturday is important, and by the way, it's won a lot of Super Bowls. So we do win a Super Bowl. And we go on, I retire, and then he moves on to Denver and to play for the Broncos. But in the meantime, he has twins. So now he goes to the coach of the Broncos. Hey, we got to do this thing called Family Saturday. It's important for the kids to know where their dads work. When I heard that story, I just fell out laughing because, again, one of those things you say downstream, you made an impact that you didn't even realize.
Well, I just love, because it's not like you weren't winning when you were at Indianapolis, right? So you're doing something right there at that with your tenure there. So in terms of servant leadership, I'd read something that Lovie Smith had said, and just he really attributed a lot of his success to you. How did you serve him? How do you serve your coaches? And just in thinking about in life, right? Most of us aren't NFL coaches. How do we serve those we lead?
Now, I know a lot of people would think, well, you become the head coach of an NFL team. You're the boss. You're setting the tone. You're telling everybody what to do. But I looked at it differently. I looked at it that my job was to help my coaching staff be the best they could be, and in turn help our players be the best they could be. So I felt like I was there helping everybody else. And I had to end up with a great staff. Lovie Smith was on my staff. He took a team to the Super Bowl. Mike Tomlin was on my staff. He took the Steelers to the Super Bowl. Jim Caldwell was on my staff. He took a team to the Super Bowl. But what I did was pour into those guys and try to help them be the best they could be and let them take it forward and carry it out. And I think all of those guys really got the same idea that my job is not to be the boss, not to be the dictator, not to be the smartest guy in the room, but be the guy who's going to help the most people be the best they could be, and then you're going to have a great organization.
So you've been a outspoken advocate for foster care and adoption, and kind of bringing it personal here a little bit. And being in the Tampa area, I get to see some of the stuff that you do. And we have a mutual friend, Lauren Smith, who really helps us.
It's been amazing.
Yeah, with foster care, just how you're able to interact with those children and whatnot. But how did you get into that? I mean, what was the spark?
Well, our first foray into it was the adoption portion. We had a lady come to our office. One of my employees was trying to be an adoptive parent, and she needed a recommendation. So she was talking to us about what she did, and she said that they tried to encourage women not to have abortions, and if they carried their pregnancies through, they would find homes for the babies. And she said she was having a difficult time finding African-American adoptive parents, and she had a backlog of babies. And of course, my wife heard that and said, what do you mean a backlog of babies? And she said, we just have all these kids and no homes for them. Well, that was 2000, and we adopted a little boy shortly after that, and then we did it 8 more times since then, because we just felt like, hey, if we're saying that we're pro-life and we care and this is we're God's hands and feet, we've got to be available. So that kind of got us started down the adoption road. And then a few years back, we got asked to do a commercial for foster care here in Hillsborough County where we live. And we're reading this commercial off and talking about the statistics and how many kids are in foster care and don't have homes. And again, my wife said, we can't just do the commercial. If this is a problem, we've got to get involved. And so we signed up, we did our licensing, we became able to be foster parents, and we've had foster kids in our homes since then.
Yeah, I love that, because so many people make excuses for why they can't do it.
Too busy, I'm too old. Those were all my excuses. My wife said, no, those weren't going to fly. And she hit me back with one of them because she saw the poster in our locker room that says, no excuses, no explanation.
She used it against you.
She used it right on me.
The scriptures say in Psalm 68:5 that God is a father to the fatherless, right? And then you look at it like Philippians 2, for instance, you see the humility of Christ. And he says, essentially, imitate me. Like, you need to be imitating Christ, right? Yeah. So with that in mind, if you could, just as a final kind of admonition to the men who are going to be watching this, what would you say to them around this area of servant leadership and how it may dovetail into fighting for the fatherless?
I go to another parable that Jesus always talked about, and he said the king will come and he'll commend some people and he'll really get on some people, and he's going to commend the people that helped him. And they'll say, when did we help you? And he said, when you helped the least of one of those in your community, you helped me. And so who are the least in our community? Those kids who really can't fend for themselves. They can't fight for themselves. If we help them, Jesus is saying, you help me. And that should be our motivation, to imitate Christ, to help those that he would want to help.
Amen. Could have said it better. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to probably hit the lake again, see if I can get something.
I need to catch at least one.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, John.
Although they didn't catch any fish, one of the things we should have caught is how Coach Dungy is the epitome of man as servant leader. He didn't just talk the talk, but walk the walk in one of the most stressful work environments possible, the National Football League. At the end of the conversation, Coach got personal and shared how Christ's command to servant leadership led him to serve the least of these. As you talk more about servant leadership today, frame your conversation around the idea that serving the fatherless is actually a way to demonstrate man as servant leader.